yeah, oh shit, I'm scared. I begged my mom to let me go to Singapore to study. Singapore was, in hindsight, a freaking army. And imagine going through such competition at such an early age. It's like, I miss home. I'm worried for my safety. Canada was a completely variety of chaos. So I did one summer in a boarding school in North Vancouver, which I later on found out it is super elite school where kids was like being chauffeured to campus in a limo stretch. So after the 3 months in the boarding school in North Vancouver, I moved to Toronto, which I went to a public school, and half of the kid in my class was selling weed. Yeah, I live, I couch surf. I live in a penthouse. Like this is my first drug. I, I met my first soulmate. Got my first job. Living with my best friend in Notting Hill for 6 months. Short time, but oh my god, it was impactful.
Hello, and welcome to Finding Your Place, a podcast about people and their journey of moving abroad and finding a place to call home. This podcast is going to help you enrich your cultural knowledge or help you move abroad. Before we dive into the conversation today, I would like to ask you for a favor. Would you mind please liking and subscribing to my podcast because this is going to help us build the future episodes. In today's episode, we have my friend Ray with whom I lived in London for 6 months. I know it's short, but it was the sweetest 6 months of my life. And it's super exciting to interview Ray because Ray moved a couple of times, actually 3 times before. Ray was born in Vietnam, and he's going to take us on his journey, how he moved from Vietnam to Singapore, and he moved from Singapore to Canada, from Canada to the UK, and from the UK to Vietnam. You want to tell the story if you recall it?
We met through Linny, of course. After the few ping pong chat with Lynn, that she said, "There's this Moldavian girl that you have to meet," and I'm like, why? And then she's like, because I remember you dated a Moldavian girl in high school. I'm like, oh yeah, oh shit, I'm scared. Do they know each other actually? But when I mean we met in the park, of course, during COVID actually. You make a carrot cake, brought it to Lynn's birthday, and the rest is history.
Yeah, we did bonded. I do think I need to thank Lynn for that. I guess living together have been like the best flatmate I could ever recommend if you ever need a recommendation for that.
Thank you. And in Notting Hill as well. I won't settle for anything less.
Those were the good days, the era.
Jesus, can you imagine? 6 months and there's so much happened.
I mean, yes. I think I changed like 4 jobs during those 6 months.
Also get a partner.
Yeah, that's true. um,
Cut a few people out of your life. Get a partner. Move your job. You helped me interviewed. Got a job, declined it. Oh my God, like I can't imagine.
but yeah, if people didn't understand how much you meant for me, I think now they have an understanding. Thank you so much for like accepting this challenge. Um,
Thanks.
I'm really excited to have you as my first guest because, like as I said, I took a 2 years break, and I've got so many messages saying we want your podcast back. And I thought, why not? And I think your story is quite impressive. So, can you just start from the beginning and tell me how you moved abroad the first time?
Let me just caveat what that you just said is that thank you for accepting challenge. No, I've been begging you for me to get on this podcast. Because I was like so impressed that you actually have a podcast and have a book. I'm like, I need to be on it. But thank you. Of course, I will make time for you anytime. And the moment you send out the email, it's like, fuck yeah, it's my turn. Okay, I'll save your audience sometimes. I'll go straight in. So I'm Vietnamese, originally Vietnamese, 100% Vietnamese. I'm not mixed. I moved away so when I was 14, and it's a very traditional path where, the middle class parents in Vietnam, they want to send the kids away just to have a better education, English speaking country in a modern society, so they can get used to the fact that they can live on their own, so they don't have to take care of the kid anymore. So that was my part. So I moved to Singapore when I was 14, and then for 2 years I did O level 16 and moved to Canada. Spent 2 years as well, completing my high school, and then I joined my friends in London to start university. And it was the city that we met. Also, it's a city I spent my 20s in. So it's a full decade, 20 to 30.
So, yeah, let's start from like when you were 14 and you kind of got told, okay, Ray, you're gonna have to move somewhere. Um, were you excited? Did you want that? Or were you like, Mom, what you're doing? I'm just not ready yet.
A bit of both, but I think the end of yeah being more excited. Also at the age of 14 is the first year, age, I would say that I've been what had the opportunity to travel to Singapore. So it's the first foreign country that I've been to. I was like, oh my days, I just want to stay here. Everything looks so modern, high rises everywhere. The street is so clean, the people is so nice, and they smell so good. And there was like AC everywhere you go, and growing back from Vietnam and from the southern countries as well. And we in a tropical weather, so you get like 6 months of extreme heat, and the other 6 months of just barely minimum. So anything with AC is heaven to me. And to be honest, I begged my mom to let me go to Singapore to study at the age of 14, even though I know that I'm gonna miss her and I'm gonna be so scared. But I think at the part of my life, I just wanted to escape. I just wanted to go fly out of the nest. That's what people say, I guess. And because I was also in a closet, I was gay. I knew I was gay already, and I just could not express that anywhere else. Being back home, so escaping was my only choice. I think in
Okay.
hindsight,
That, yeah, I kind of relate a bit with you because I was 14 when I asked my parents to let me move abroad as well. Um,
yeah.
and yeah, I feel a bit for you. I know how is the challenge of being in a country where you don't feel like you belong there, like you're not like
Mm.
everyone else. Um, and why did you get to Canada then? Like you wanted to go to Singapore and then all of a sudden it's Canada.
Now the cheeky bit of me coming out. So Singapore was in hindsight a freaking army. It's like an army training program. Like you go there and you study. Like that's what your only choice. So I remember when I was there, I needed guardians, and so I stay in a hostel with my guardians. And in that guardian's house, there's like 30 other kids. They literally army style are the kids. Everyone was from a foreign country, so they're from Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Malaysia. It's a really international house where all the kids below 16 living together, completely, neurotic, completely deers in the headline in the new city, and they just wanted to get into a school where they have the possibility to stay in Singapore. Because you have to do a series of exam into basically they call it entrance exam to public school in Singapore to be able to stay in Singapore and study. So everyone was so competitive because you can get five kids in the house trying to apply to the same school, and imagine going to such competition at such an early age. It's like I miss home. I'm worried for my safety. Is anyone poisoning my food? But again, at the same time, you feel so alone. But at the same time, excited because you have so many kids to hang out with, even though they could be backstabbers.
Wow.
I mean, I'm describing it like a TV show like you see on Netflix something, but it was somewhat similar to it.
It does sound like Love Island or something like that. A
Like
Love Island
everyone,
for kids,
yeah,
just to get
Jesus.
not to get the guide, to get the school. You had Canada as the option there,
Mm.
and I mean you're 14 flying. How long was the flight to Canada? Like I don't know, 12
Whew.
hours.
Uh, I think I didn't fly to Canada from Singapore. I flew from Vietnam, so I think there was no direct flight. So you have to either have to stop in Taipei or Hong Kong as a gateway. But I think I went to Hong Kong. In total, the it would take around a day for you to get to Canada with the transfer included, with the yeah the stopover and stuff. So it's quite far. I knew no one there. We found a school to an agency. So, I mean, that's just the pre-start. Canada was a completely variety of chaos. So I did one summer in a boarding school in North Vancouver, which I later on found out it is super elite school where kids was like being chauffeured to campus in a limo stretch. And imagine me as a Vietnamese boy being exposed to that. I was like, what is life? So at that point, I relate so much to Charlie in that movie, The Perks of Being a Wallflowers, because I observe a lot. I didn't know how to react. I don't know what is the right thing to say. I didn't even how understand the experience that I'm experiencing. So I just sat back and watched and observed. So after the 3 months in the boarding school in North Vancouver, I moved to Toronto, which I went to a public school, and half of the kid in my class was selling weed. It's like complete polarity of experience that I experienced as for a 16 years old kid in a completely, you know, 12,000, sorry, 20,000 miles away country. So it was very, very interesting as a part of that part of my life, which in hindsight, I think it gave a lot um, for me a stillness and a solitude when any experiences arise because I learned observation skill to that phase in my life.
You had like the best of the world and the worst of the world, and you're like probably just like 15, 14, 15. That's when your
Mm,
personality forms. And you're also on
mm,
top of that, there is another layer. You're in a foreign country. It's not like you change schools twice, you're changing school in foreign country.
mm,
So I do have a lot of admiration because being a kid and going through that was possibly the worst thing that kids would expect. How did you feel about Canada in general? Because I obviously know you moved to London after Canada,
mm.
and I want you to give me an overview of what was living in Canada and
Yeah,
into different cities.
yeah. I think well, there's always pros and cons. I think the pros in terms of Canada for me is such a well-balanced lifestyle if you want to live there because you like half an hour away from nature. The people is gentle, they kind, and those are the person that you know that you can ask for help on the street. I don't think you can do that much in London, to be honest with you. Not yet every 100% chances. So for me as a kid when I was 16, living in Canada, it felt very safe to me. So that's why I could roam the city on my own if I needed to. And in terms of education, I would say um, it depends, but I definitely really recommend going through a series of different exam entrance to go different high school, maybe more selective high school, because even though the one that I went to in Toronto has a lot of I would say stigma, into social stigma with kids selling weed and stuff, but I think you can find that pretty much anywhere. Anyway, there's always part of the city where it's a bit less desirable place to live, but in hindsight, if you survive it, it gives you a lot of characters as well and a different perspective in life and I guess appreciation for what you have at that point in times. Um, so yeah, I mean, very desirable place to live. Even though I would say for my youth, especially my 20, I needed something more. I need something more exciting. Is what Canada was too mellow for me.
I think I was the same. I moved to Prague,
Yeah.
and then I was like, need some excitement. Let me move to
Yeah.
London.
Honey, we relentless.
um, you know what I wanted to ask you, because you obviously open up about the fact that you were in the closet in
Mm,
Vietnam, and I obviously know you dated a Moldavian girl in Canada. Um, can you just give me a bit of explanation? Because I thought you moved abroad because you wanted to open up, to get to
mm,
know yourself, maybe be a bit gay, and then
mm.
you're in Canada and
Yeah.
you are dating a woman. Explain, please.
I think yeah, hit me to the nails into the generational trauma that I have in Vietnam is that men had to be super masculine. So even though I'm gay now in my 30, I don't identify myself as a can be gay. I still do sport. I'm quite active. I would say I don't speak fluently. There's no offense to that as well. I have flamboyant friends, but I just don't see myself acting that way. So I think growing up when you were 16, there's so much for you to prove as a boy in a gender specific, and also as a gay man. Like I need to be, make my mom proud that even though I'm gay, I'm still being able to do the manly stuff, like surviving the city alone, or going through all these challenges in my adolescent years alone. So I think that was more of that. And when I was in Canada, I think now in hindsight, and maybe I did have a bit of depression as a kid, because I was very far away from home. I have very limited friends that I can share myself with, or friends that I didn't know how to share myself with. So I always have that barrier in terms of communication growing up. I think I didn't really opening up until recent years after my first job, I would say. So that in hindsight, that had led me to make decision. Maybe I should explore the dating game a bit more. And at that point, that Moldavian girl was really attracted to me for some reason. She was like 6 feet, brunette, pretty, long legs. I'm like model-esque, and she was just sitting behind me in math class, and she was just touching my bicep and say, "Hey Ray, you have really nice arms." And I'm like, shit, this really hot girl hitting on me. What do I do? I went with it.
I guess you had to test to see if it works. Maybe you thought maybe it was wrong with the girls in Vietnam. Maybe you know
Exactly. I mean, and also I kind of had that, feeling it's nice to be, walking around school with a hot girl.
what happened. Like you finished your studies in Canada. Why you didn't stop
Um,
there? What happens? Why London? Who told you to move to London?
friends of friends of friends of friends. I heard the news that some friend that I knew moved to London. But at the same time, I think Toronto was getting a bit bored for me, in terms of like personal development. Or honestly, at that point, you don't think much about personal development per se. You like, I need an outlet. I don't know what it is. I just need to look for my next drug. And I think London was like, you know what? I see movies. I know London through, Google, through City, to MTV. So I was like, it seemed exciting enough for me to go there. So that's literally that's how I make my decision. The moment when I landed in London, it was like, oh my God, what is this place? So you being ushered into a campus with, again, tons of other international kids. And I make my first friend who is still my best friend today. I'm gonna go to his wedding in August, which I told you about. So definitely the moment you arrived and then your chapter start unfolding. That chapter where you be like, oh, in my 20 I did that. It start unfolding already. And I met Zoya as well, who you met a few times, and I think it's just where you really make a lot of lifelong, I would say, friendship, and it just unfolding so beautifully.
I spoke about London in
Mm,
my podcast before,
mm,
and people can go back and listen to that. And I had some guests speaking about it. But I think what is super interesting is about, as I said, everyone have their own version of London
mm,
because London is
mm,
so big, different. You choose to live in one place, you have a different lifestyle than if you
mm.
would choose to live in another place. And I want you to go for your version of London. But what
Okay.
is, I think it's super cool is also we're going to open this right now and say that you returned back to Vietnam. And I think
Mm,
would be really interesting to go into this discussion about, what London meant to you and why London wasn't the end stop for
mm.
you and why you returned to Vietnam.
I think London, I mean, experienced the variety of growth and also human experiences in London. Like you make your first like but real best friend where like soulmates, like you can talk, you can open up. So for me, it was very important. And in hindsight, I think that's exactly what I was looking for, moving from Vietnam to Singapore, to Canada, and to London. I think finding that soulmate where they speak your language, where they where you don't have to guard your heart and you can just say anything to them and they completely understand you and they are a completely different person from you. They just in another part of the world come to London and we had exactly the same experience. So for that, I think I would thank London for like putting all these people, the missing soul together, and we create such a beautiful international families. And yeah, I think that is where I keep my purpose on. When I start looking for new relationship in my life, that will be the key meter where I would test the next relationship that come into my life. You need to have the same zest, the same understanding and empathy when I find my next relationship. So leaving London was fun. I mean, I mean, I kid you not, for the 11 years I lived there, I moved 15 times. I lived from the west to central to the north to the south to the east to, I mean, in a hotel, remember, for 2 months during COVID. So definitely London. I wanted to experience London in that sense as well. I need to experience every aspect of London. Um, and I would not be satisfied without doing it. Um, yeah, I couch surf. I live in a penthouse. Like, this is my first drug. I, I met my first soulmate, got my first job, living with my best friend in Notting Hill for 6 months. Short time, but oh my God, it was impactful. And honestly, I think um, if I could recommend anyone, and if you do have opportunity to, I try not to be privileged over here. If you have the opportunity to live in London, take it. It will be such a good city for you to reinstate your character as a person, your well-meaning purpose in life, of course, because you get so much inspiration from everyone you meet, everyone trying to find their place, everyone trying to make the names, or not even, just to have a better life, coming from wherever background that they come from. And I think it gives you so much motivation to be in the same frequency as those people. Chips.
I couldn't have said it better, I think.
Mm.
There is something beautiful about how London brings this
Mm.
beautiful souls. I think you're right. It
Is our
does
version
attract.
similar?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like how you talk about relationships, because
Mm.
for me it also, like, it was London was, or it is, I mean, I'm not living there anymore, but it's still like about those relationships that it
No,
builds.
you still live in London, honey. I would still call it Central England.
I mean, in my mind, physically I'm here, and mentally I'm in Notting Hill. What made you break everything and,
Yeah.
move to Vietnam back? Because I
Mm,
never understood that. I mean, I do understand it now, but
mm. I think the big bit was COVID. COVID, of course, I've been spending, I think, living in London throughout COVID. I think it could be, it was tough. I don't say it's the toughest, but it was tough. You far away from home. I mean, personally, I was going through a lot as well, in my personal life, in terms of romantic life, and it it make a decision in myself that say I need to spend a bit more time with my family. Sure, they are going through some changes, massive changes, and with my mom and my brother just on their own, and I know one of them is not capable to uphold what's life required. So it was my decision to move back, spend a bit more time with them, even though just being side by side. I'm not at the time when I moved back, I didn't know 100% sure that I could offer anything, but I think just being physically here give them a lot of, maybe a bit of, mental support that they have someone else for them. That this is looking out for them as well. So, but then again, with that, family is one thing, but also Southeast Asia at the moment, it's just a massive um, opportunity hubs for tech, for marketing, for e-commerce, and I'm really like aspired and also respected a lot of my friend that moved back and earning 30%, like, sorry, 70% less than salary they were earning just to be in the midst of the Southeast Asia growth. And for that I'm was just super interested to be moving back and figure out what can I offer here in my country.
it's quite impressive because you haven't been living there for what, 15 years? Is
Mm,
that
half my
the
life.
number?
Yeah.
Um, and you came, you left Vietnam as a child and you came
Mm,
back as a grown adult.
mm,
And I guess a lot of your personality, taste, your ways of doing stuff is very different right now, because you're probably influenced by the cultures where you were
Mm,
growing, or by the
mm,
people. And can we go into talking the difference now
mm,
you are in Vietnam, as you're probably feeling as an expat right now in
mm.
Vietnam, and
Completely.
how it feels? Just tell me how the culture is, how living there is.
I think again back to the Canada question as well, pros and cons. I'll go to the cons first. 'Cause let's just start with happy ending. I miss walking, man. I miss walking. You cannot walk in my city. I miss of just seeing exciting thing happening every other day. Because in London you get a lot of that. You bump into billboard, you get into random exhibition, run into random events because the city is so big, it offers so much entertainment outlet, experience and outlets. So even though my city, Saigon, has the same population as London, 15 million people, but the experience outlet is very limited. So there's only a few bars you can go to if you have the certain taste. There's only a few restaurants that is good, etc. So the bars scenes and also the entertainment scene is what somewhat I feel this is I have to give up moving from London. And the second bit also, of course, the people. I live my 20s in London and I make the best of best people there. And the people I tend to keep in my life. And moving back home, which means saying bye to those people and to my such a core support system, it was the biggest challenge that for me to come to that decision. Um, but I think it's also a challenge for me to upkeep that relationship. It's a test to relationship. So even though I'm from far away, to whether if I can actually make those relationships work, if I really have a genuine care for them, it's for me to find that as well. And I think so far I've been doing well, right?
Yes.
So that's the cons. The people that I miss in London, and also the physical facility that the city that my city compared to London. But the pro is that uh, I'm still work for a London company, for a company called Feastback. It's a marketing agency where we, how agency work. We do work with a lot of different brands. So luckily, I strike a deal with them. I able to work remotely in Vietnam completely permanently from Vietnam for a company in London. And I just have to make true business trip a year back to London. So and that for me was a combination of, you know what, everything just into place already, just move. Um, so I think that was in hindsight give a lot of courage that I could make the decision to move back because it took me 2 years to make the decision. Everyone else, including you, my Vietnamese friends, was like, "When are you gonna move? You've been saying this for years." I'm like,
Actually,
"That's it."
I will say the disclaimer. I was really upset when you told me you're gonna move to Vietnam. The deal was that you're gonna move after we move out of Notting Hill flat.
Mm.
So I was really, really, really upset. And I remember, I think it was Lean or somebody else in the group told me, "Oh, don't worry. Ray always says he's gonna move back to Vietnam, but he's never gonna do it." And then I think
That's how I
the
learned.
reality, when you actually moved, it was sad.
The pros in Vietnam is that earning a salary is UK salary living in Vietnam is a dream for me. I could afford much better lifestyle. Not saying that being super privileged, but like you can live quite nicely. You have a mate to help you with your admins, and you can chauffeur everywhere you go, and you eat well. You don't have to cook and things like that. And for me, in hindsight, it gave me a lot of how to say energy freedom. Because imagine you finish a 8 hours days of work, go back home, you have to do laundry, you have to cook for yourself. That mental capacity is taking over. You have no time to take care of yourself, except for you have to organize a time to actually meditate, or you have to, like uh take a Sunday off just to reset. A lot of people do that when in London. You cannot spend any time with anyone on Sunday because you need that time for yourself. And for me, I think living in Vietnam is quite privileged in the sense that service is so cheap, what you can afford with the UK salary. I can go to a massage parlor during my lunch break, for example, or can have food delivered to you when you finish your I don't know, important meeting, things like that. And for me, I think that's the main pro. The second is also maybe it's just for my own perception is that I luckily really I mean, I'm grateful for life. I met the moment I moved back, I met two of the best people in terms of gay. I met two of my gay friends here that whom allow me to feel completely um how to say com completely comfortable with my feminine side. And I never had that even in London.
Okay, wow. Um,
Um,
why do you think you had it? Like, why do you think you had difficulties with being a bit feminine? I find that in quite a lot of men. I mean,
mm,
not shaming or anything, but
yeah,
why do you think
I
you
think
had
it's
that
a bit of
problem?
internal shaming. I didn't have that when I was living with you, by the way. So I think it's more about the people you hang out with. Um, the I think the affirmation that you gave when we lived together was like gold. Remember when on Halloween and I was like dressing in a leather suit and then wearing complete tank top, like neon tank top and walk outside? I would never able to do that for myself when it was like wasn't living with you. So I think it's very much about the people around you. And
Wow,
I could not be more thankful when these people I found these people, including you, that allowed me to be and also affirm me to be completely myself.
I am. I'm actually glad for you because
Mm,
I do think I do think you had a bit of trouble. But I think all of us have things that we're kind
yeah.
of ashamed of or worried about what the society is gonna say.
Mm,
And then again, that kind of lends me about how is the culture there and what society
mm,
says about you moving back to Vietnam. Because
mm.
I know how that would be for me moving back in Moldova. Like, what's the
It's, it,
society?
it's, it's super bizarre to me because now when I move back after spending 10 years in London, I have such a clarity on seeing the different side culture. So it's completely separated in two different ways. You have a super traditional side of Vietnamese, and they tend to hang out together, and you have a super expat and extroverted, westernized in a sense of freedomness. I'm not saying I'm not glorifying Westernized culture, but I'm glorifying the Westernized, the valuable Westernized values. For example, freedom of speech, express yourself, own your trauma, individualistic in a way that you need to be mindful of your own trauma and you need to not really give unsolicited bad energy, not bad energy, it's toxic energy without being asked for. So that is what I would glorify Western core values for in that more more four of the main ones. But again, there's a lot of Eastern culture that I values as well, coming from being super interested into Buddhism, like you need your community, you even though you are an individual, but you have to care for others within your communities as well. Being family oriented is one of the key things, and also the marry of the both West and the East culture for me is definitely awareness and mindfulness, which I don't really understand the word because it's such a big word. What's mindfulness for you? What is it? What was the examples? Is it when you going home to a trouble families? Do you lash out or do you accept that they are humans? They also have issue. Even though you're supposed to help them as a family member, but you need to draw boundary for yourself. So I think that's mindfulness because if you're not 100% healthy, you cannot help anyone. You have to help yourself first.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think it's again coming back to the discussion that we had
Mm,
offline today, but it's about how how we take best, I think, of both cultures and just adapt that for us. Because technically, there is not a right or wrong answer. How you felt about you coming back and how your family felt about it Was it like, oh my God, my son is coming back, or like he's coming back, that's glorification? Or was it more like seen as, damn, he's coming back, maybe it's a failure? Because
Mm,
I'm, again, judging from the perspective of my culture, which I think is very similar to yours.
yeah. No, good question actually. I had that doubts as well that my family would say like, okay, he coming back to the privilege. He coming back here just to enjoy being an easy life. But keeping the job in London for me was a way for me to tell my mom, I'm just exploring my terrain here. I'm still having my own life. I still have business to trip to make. I have my completely different professional life in London I need to lead, even though I'm physically in Vietnam. That also give me the courage to basically tell her mom also I'm moving out. I'm not gonna live with you. After 2 weeks being back home, I have my own flat. I bought my own Vespa. I reinstate completely an individualist lifestyle, detached from my family. Because for my philosophy, even though your family being together and if it doesn't bring any value, it's not healthy. Um, Best quality time is spent when it's meaningful, when it's intended, not like you wake up, you see their faces every day, and you start behave in erratic behavior because you just feel annoyed. I'd rather take time away, and then the time, the 2 hours I see you on Sunday, is good quality time. I tell you the struggle that I have, and it ends there.
That's super healthy. I think that's more of a Western way of, seeing family and interacting with family. Because
Mm.
I think Eastern, like, I mean, my
Yeah,
brother is like 40. He still
patriarchal,
lived with
right?
my, yeah.
Exactly.
Like,
That's the same case with my brothers as well. So I see that and I'm like, this is not me. It's not my identity. I can't do this. So it's more like that.
sorry, just on the brother side, you mean he's living with your mom,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
okay. So we have completely two different
Exactly.
aspects of that. What advice would you give to people who actually are considering to move to Vietnam?
If they're Asian, I'm sorry if I have to like expedite this in a, a racial specific thing. But if you're Asian and you move to Vietnam, it's likely will be slightly bit easier for you comparing to Westerner, because of course of the massive culture differences. For example, if you're Singaporean or you're Malaysian, you move to Vietnam, it will give you a bit of an edge because you kind of see the family culture is very aligned and the way that people do business as well. So you might find of comfort in familiarity, but for Westerner, if you want to move to Vietnam, um, definitely considering Ho Chi Minh City over Hanoi because the Ho Chi Minh City is financial hub. Most of the big tech, e-commerces and marketing startup is based there, and also it's the biggest financial hub in Vietnam. I think we have around 800,000 expat actually living in the city, including Asian and plus also Westerners as well. So it's a city that is built for for renters. Basically, you even though it doesn't have as much entertainment and experience and outlets as London, you can still find a lot of westernized activity there as well. There's our bouldering clubs. There are kayaking clubs, or there are CrossFit club across the city, and there are area dedicated for expat, especially in the Situ. It's called Thao Dien. It's the best area for expat because it's married to westernized living style compare merged together with the way that the Ho Chi Minh City is built. So small alleys, but it's a lot of shops. So that I think you will find quite interesting settlement there. And in terms of jobs, I could not really advise on that, but there are a few. If you're looking to move to a city for job specifically, definitely have go on LinkedIn, poach recruiter, especially within your industry, because they could refer you the best company that will be based in maybe have a headquarters in Singapore, but need people from Vienna to work from there. Um, and third, in terms of cost of living, as I just blatantly explained you, everything is super affordable. especially the services as well. In for your contact, Uber trip from my place to my workplace, which is 15 minutes away, costs around £1. Um,
Wow.
and you can have a decent meal, a really good nutritious pho for like I think £1.50, and that's your
Wow.
dinner sorted. Yeah, and you can get it done within half an hour. So the speed of the service is super quick, which means you save a lot of time in terms of efficiency, moving across city, eating dinner, even doing your life admin like chores and cleaning houses and stuff like that. You can get a cleaner for as little as £100 a month, and they can clean you
Wow.
twice a week for every week.
I'm sold.
So
You mentioned in terms of doing business. So when you mentioned the comparison for somebody
mm,
Asian coming
mm,
there, and you said it's quite the same doing business.
mm,
I want this comparison. So tell me how is
mm,
different doing business in Vietnam from how is different doing
mm,
business in London, for example, UK.
mm. I would say a lot of for Asian culture, if I because I work in marketing and I work in an agency and I work as an account management roles as well. So a lot of my duty is working with clients um, that from different brands. And I compare that to the way that my friend doing it in Vietnam. It's a completely different cycle. So, for example, in London, I would, reach out to the brand, have an initial call of work, and then pitched up the idea, and essentially just basically um, showcase the service and offerings. For Vietnam, in a sense, this is how they do. They were like searching for the people on LinkedIn, ask them for coffee. How about dinner? Tell me about yourself. Do you want to go to this event with me? Start building relationship from there, and then start pitching the process, the services. So it's a completely relationship management in a more intense way. For if you want to do business in Vietnam, there's a lot of gifting. There's a lot of doing favors first, and then you get your deal signed off. So that's what I
It
say.
does
Was yeah.
it does sounds very different. It does sound relationship driven. I mean, I don't know. Personally, I would like to go for a coffee and get to know who's going to be holding my marketing dollar.
Mm.
But unfortunately, gifting and things like that don't work here. I
Exactly.
actually, when you said it, I kind of remember my mom. So she had a contract with a Singaporean company.
Mm.
I used to have a laptop, and it was like all the letters were in Singapore letters. I don't know if that's a
Oh,
language or anything, but it was.
yeah.
And then everyone was asking me, where did you get it from? And I was like, yeah, my mom had a contract with a Singaporean company. And when they signed the contract, they gifted this like new MacBook to her. And they
Yeah.
were looking with big eyes. They were like,
Ex
seriously?
yeah,
And
exactly. So exactly how they do it. I have a friend who works in the manufacturing for Samsung packages, and I kid you not, like the way that she entertain her clients is out this world. Like they would take them to like trips in Japan, giving them luxury items and things like that just to make the deal work. And Jesus, like for me, it was flabbergasted. I mean, my family has a business background anyway, so I know how it's work. But it just see the clear definition of how the West and the Eastern do business. It's just mind-boggling to me.
yeah, it's quite impressive. I don't say
Yeah.
it's wrong or right, but I think
No,
it's
no,
it's
of
really
course not.
impressive to know this. To
It's
I don't want people to think that oh my god, when somebody is gifting them something, those
mm,
business ethics case or the contract, whatever, you're not supposed
yeah,
to accept it. I think it would even look worse if you don't accept any gifts or stuff like that.
exactly. Yeah. So I think my goal in life is going to be the most versatile person in the world. I understand culture. I adapt myself well. And I think having to learn that and relearn that actually is it just really instill a lot of confidence in myself. I know how things work in different city, and I think that would be my philosophy. And also my feedback or even recommendation for people that planning to move to Vietnam. So we are heavily East Asia central society with a heavily Eastern culture. So be mindful of that when you do business deals, when you take your clients in.
I love that you said this because this is kind of the reason why I have this podcast is like to
Mm,
help people just develop their like cultural knowledge and also like help them when they decide to move abroad or when they go traveling and so on. So,
mm,
yeah, thanks a lot for highlighting that. I asked you to bring something mindful. Did you manage to do that? Something that
mm.
reminds you or of like have a good memory of the place you lived with before?
I have such a strong connection to music. I relate so much to music throughout my years, throughout my Canadian years when honestly had a bit of depression. I listened to a lot of mellow indie like Stephen Stevens or things like that. And then in London you would then move on to listening to Georgia Smith or like Georgetown's Boys or all the indie side of Eastern hip hop. Um, so I think music is a very constant um, key area for me that make me remind of a certain place, certain people, certain vibe. Um, and at the moment, I mean, I listen to music constantly, so you see that. It's just
Hmm.
music. Never checked that. Um, for that, I would say my playlist
I
is
love
very good.
that. Amazing. So yeah, we'll put the link in there, and if you want to get a taste of Ray's brain or taste or life, just
Mhm.
like go in there and listen to his songs. Does it feel like home for you?
For 10 years that I live in London, I mean, it's, it is home, but it's not home. Um, I'm sure when you will have a very similar renaissance to your feelings as well. Um, I don't call myself third culture kid or whatever, but I know where I'm from. I'm Vietnamese. I grew up here. I have familiarity here, but I grew the most when I was out of Vietnam. So being back here, it's just to rediscovering my roots, and I need to find, and I still in the process to be honest. I need to find the meaning of how that merge together and what is exactly my identity. It could be maybe a variable of identity, who knows? Um, it feels home, but it's not home.
I get you. And
Mm.
just this curiosity, do you think you would move again? Where would you move again? Please say London.
I knew this question gonna come up, but yes, of course. Then I mean, I'm British.
Yay.
I see London
Thanks,
my
the Queen.
second home. Thanks, Queen, and also the King. Right now, I think
Oh, yeah.
monarchy should die, but whatever. Um, London is my second home for sure, but I'm ready to explore another place. But for now, I think in short future, at least for the next 5 years, Vietnam will be my base.
So yeah, you guys, if you want to meet Ray, just fly over to Vietnam.
I
I'm
also
sure he's I'm sure you're gonna share around. Um, but what after 5 years? Do you think you'll move back to London, or do you have a special mind in your place? Like, because you a place in your mind? Because I
Mm,
obviously know you traveled a lot, and we do talk a lot about. Oh, I would live there, and I would live there.
mm.
Um, do you have any other places on your mind?
I mean, after COVID, I just really hard to like make long-term plans anymore. For me right now, 2 years plan is already quite a stretch, but at least I know that Vietnam will be my core and how's that unfolding, that will be up to it. But maybe just to answer the question, I think California is one of the key city. I love to surf, and it's a city where it's connected enough to modern society, that you have proximity within, the tech area and the e-commerce area. So, California for sure. Definitely still want to live there for at least 1 year just to really to find out what exactly it's like to live in the US.
American Dream. I would like to thank you for this. It's been an absolute pleasure. I don't know if you
Stop it.
have any last notes, something you forgot to say. Maybe your phone number.
Um,
I'm joking.
you gotta put it up there anyway. I'm kidding.
I will.
Um, Uh, no, thank you for the opportunity as well. I mean, I've been begging you to get on the podcast for ages. So, of course, when you tell it, like, I'm gonna study the question, answer it, like, be super well prepped. And I hope I answer your question in the nicest way.
You did.
Um, But last note, I mean, I move a lot as a person. So I would say when you move, you you have new experience, and it's just a basic um, denomination coming out of movings. And I think every experience is really reinstate who you are as a person. Definitely, if you're young and you're able to, and especially within this such a connected world, do it. You know, what's for you to lose? You like you found your love life, you found your partner in crime there. I moved and then I met you. You know, and I think I could not really encourage people enough to step out the comfort zone, move away from something that you know so well, just to really go away from something that you know so well to find yourself.
I love that. And I would highlight the word comfort zone. Actually, it's such a, yeah, I almost forgot about it. But I agree with you. Step out of the comfort zone. Just try it because this is how we become better people, I guess. It's all about getting out of the comfort zone. So, um, thank you.